I think it's really important that these guys who have to wear these multiple hats, have the help in order to be able to manage that business. He's so good on the tools, but he also needs to be able to manage and run the business in order to be successful.
Welcome, Australia. It's that time again for another podcast from the Mate team, where we try and get into your head with stuff that makes us sound smart. Sit back and relax. It's time for us to be mates.
Welcome everyone to the Let's Be Mates podcast. I'm Dom, one of your hosts, and we've got Faz here as well.
Hey Dom, how you going?
Yeah, good mate. Welcome back.
Back for another season 2 in 2021. It's a new world, it's a new day.
Sure is. We've got some exciting guests lined up, and this season it's quite a vast, alignment. We've got with people from mental health. We've got entrepreneurs, we've got people from startups. It's a real wide-ranging topics we've got to cover. Yeah,
I think we've got a lot of guests that we resonate with their story based on how Mate started, and I think it's linking that back is the main purpose for what we do.
In today's episode, we're talking to Johann, the founder of Soul App, a new money management app he founded in 2020 using his life savings. Mate was started with a problem we thought Australians had when purchasing their Telco products. This is what drove us to do what we do. At the time, our founders also put their own money on the table and mortgaged their houses to start the business in our Aunties' backyard. We resonate with Soul App's story, which is all about creating an easy, beautiful accounting app, but there's no confusing lingo or jargon. Our aim at Mate is to give people what they need, but do it better, and offer them the value they deserve. Our mates at Soul App are trying to do exactly the same.
Johann, welcome to the Let's Be Mates podcast. It's great to have you on.
Oh, thanks, mate. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Awesome, mate. Look, we've been reading your story and what you're doing, which sounds fantastic. I think we can relate as a business because, we feel like we've come from nothing and achieved something, and it only happens with motivation, determination, and the right attitude. And it seems like this is exactly who you are and what you do. And but mate, I guess Johann, let's start with introducing yourself to our audience, who you are, what you do, where you've come from, and what you aspire to be, I guess.
Yeah, cool, of course. So basically, as the title of this podcast would probably say, is that I've just launched an app called Soul App. Basically, what it tries to do is help freelancers, sole traders, and the self-employed to really get on top of their finances. It's looking at the little guy and making sure that there is someone to support them. So it's a very niche market, but it's a very important market as well. So that's just been going live, I think, 8 weeks. We launched it early this year, so very, very early days there. But I do that on the side. So what I do full-time is actually work for Queensland Health in the COVID surety division. Basically, what I've been doing to date is we set up the data, framework, structure, really what do I call it? The structure that actually supplied the PPE to the different hospitals to make sure that we have the right PPE at the hospitals at the right time. Yeah. So really working in supply chain services, which was a new thing for me over the last 12 months, but really been enjoying it. And currently we're trying to set up 4 new warehouses to make sure that we can bolster the supply chain and make sure that there are no shortcomings of other PPE or other critical clinical goods in the future. And then my background is actually in accounting. So I studied commerce at UQ and did finance and accounting there, and then moved into PricewaterhouseCoopers for 4 years and became a chartered accountant there, where I really, became passionate about accounting and realized where this gap in the market really was.
Yeah, I love what you're doing there. You're creating something out of a profession that you've learned, that you feel like people they're missing a tool that's stopping them from achieve their goals, and you've went and created it, right? And so, which is awesome.
So what was that gap, I guess, that you identified, and then the idea to come up and how to fix it?
Yeah, mate, of course. So it's actually a funny story. So it started in my parents' garage, really, because we were I was having a drink with a friend, a family friend of mine, and he was telling me about his business. So he is a tradie, or a jack of all trades, or whatever they call him. So he just does the general housework around the house. But what he was saying is he was missing expenses and getting, subpar tax returns, and he thought he was paying too much for his tax. And I walked him through it, and just from what I would expect to see, and basically he was just saying, he's got the shoebox filled with receipts, but he keeps losing them in his ute and that kind of stuff. So what I actually walked through with him was, the key things he needs to do. So he needs to be able to send his invoices when he's there, so that he can actually claim that and make sure that the client or customers that he's got is paying him. He needs to be able to manage his client. So what he was saying was he saves his client as Bob in his phone, and then he forgets Bob's name. So he can't follow up, he can't do the maintenance, he can't do that kind of stuff. So he's actually losing a lot of work.
And a lot of money, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the other thing, the last thing that he said to me that I found really interesting, that he's never done a budget or a forecast before. Now, from an accounting background, I was like, well, you don't know what a budget is? But, I think it's really important that these guys who have to wear these multiple hats, have the help in order to be able to manage that business. He's so good on the tools, but he also needs to be able to manage and run the business in order to be successful. And I guess that's really where the story of Soul started, was with him just telling me his problem. And then what I wanted to design was a beautiful application that's just on a mobile, because the other issue is he doesn't want to carry a laptop around, right? So just on your mobile phone, it's easy to use and it just does what you need. Because he was using another software to manage some of it, and then sending invoices in a different software. But what the issue was he doesn't actually know how to use the software. He was using 5% of it as opposed to actually just using it.
Yeah, it's like a simple solution for somebody that needs the applications in their work life, and the applications that they don't even understand, right? Yeah, so you're putting into layman's term, which is awesome. And my dad, he had his own business, had a welding business, and I think he lost a lot of business over the years because he didn't know how to use a computer or take care of his accounts properly, or he probably saved his customer name Bob as well, right? And so I think that's, we've learned a lot from his business, because in the challenge he had with things he didn't understand. So, mate, it makes so much sense.
So you've come up with you've seen the gap, and you've come up with the idea, and you know how to fix it. But where to from then? What was the next step to go? Well, let's make this a reality.
Yeah, so after that, it was quite interesting. I started, I went to Officeworks and I bought a book, and then I just started drawing. So that's where it really started, was I just literally started drawing in a book and what I thought that the app should look like. And then one of my friends, I was just asking around if anyone knew what even the next step of creating an app would be. And it turned out that I Googled it, and it was wireframing. So that's then what I went into, and I started doing some wireframes. And then, funnily enough, a mate of mine said to me, my sister is about to marry someone who works for a development agency here locally in Brisbane. And I said, fantastic. I want to keep it local. I want to just, do it here in Australia so it's easy and I can meet them face to face, which is, I'm a lot better like that. And anyway, so I met them. They're called Ground Crew, and really hit it off. Didn't even go for a second quote to anyone else, and we just teed it up. It was in their old offices down in the valley, and I remember I was sitting on a beanbag, and it was fairly similar to today, where I'm hopping up and down because I'm so passionate about it. And I was telling them the story and what I wanted to achieve. They had a look at my wireframes, throw them straight in the bin, and then we restarted from there around what it should look like. And yeah, that's really what we did. And then we did the first development. It took about 18 months to make sure all the flows and everything was good. Then we launched that into iOS, and then the last 6 months we've got Android up to speed and got the right features in there. And yeah, haven't really had any complaints, so it's been good.
From a personal level, right? So you've had an idea that you from an experience that you feel that you can do something better. then you've decided to do it, right? You've found somebody, you're putting your hard-earned money into it, right? It's 18 months and you haven't really done anything yet, right? Like you're building something that you hope people will come to, right? And like how do you keep the motivation for that? Because like if I relate it back to our story, right? We said, okay, let's start an internet company, but why would people buy internet from us, right? Like who gives a shit about us, right? And during that journey, like, yeah, sure, we had many ups and downs. Like, was this going to work? Is it not going to work? Have we made the dumbest decision in our lives and stuff like that? And you know what? In your mind, do you have any of those doubts, or do you take us on that 18-month journey? Like, what are the ups and downs? What have you done? How have you felt? Those type of things.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. So just as a bit of background, so I've actually funded this business myself. So
yeah.
The good thing is I don't have any debt.
Yeah.
But the bad news is I was actually going to buy a house. So
yeah.
I started working when I was 14, at school and all through university and all that kind of stuff, saving my house deposit. And when I had this idea, I essentially said, I either got to go for it or I just got to leave it at the door, because once you're in, you're in.
Yeah.
That's the way that I wanted to do it. So, I hopped in. I saw the gap and I just want to help people.
Yeah.
I think it's very hard for me, and I don't know if it's the same for you guys and in your story, but I'm not going to have many opportunities in my life with an accounting background to actually make a difference in someone's life. That's really the purpose of what we're trying to do at Soul, is just help the little guy, because no one else is going to do it. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. So, and I actually did the interview a couple of weeks back, and, throughout the interview, what I actually realized is my success is actually dependent on my customer success.
Yeah.
And I think that is so important to remember throughout this entire journey. But to answer your question directly, I guess it was very tough for that 18 months, especially because I didn't see a single product.
Yeah.
You just go through so many development cycles and testing cycles. And I tell you, if someone explained to me before I started how difficult it truly was, I probably would have thought about it twice. But like I said, once I got into the trenches and I'd make the big investment up front, I was really passionate about it. And I could see that the gap was growing and there's more people coming in. And it was actually quite good, and hear me out here about COVID, because it's now more important than ever for these sole traders to get some help. So it's actually so timely that this happened. And I mean, our uptake hasn't been massive and we're still small, and it's been for 8 weeks, but I'm pretty certain that there will be uptake and we will be able to make a difference. So, yeah.
Mate, I like to say that, and we're pretty blunt here. Shit takes time, right? Stuff takes time. And you mentioned one really valid point there. You said that you want to help people. You started the business by wanting to help people. And that's the whole reason why we started Mate, right? And that's why we called it Mate, because we wanted to make sure that we were mates with the customers that we had, so they felt comfortable just like they do with their mates, right? And I think, in my opinion, in this day and age, the reason why business can be successful, if you start with a purpose of making a difference, then you can't go wrong, right? If it's about making money, then you start with the wrong purpose, because even though that's the opportunity at the end, but if you start with the purpose of making a difference, that's what people need, then you're going to start from the right intentions, you're going to start from the right way, because you're thinking about what the customer needs at the end of the day versus what you need in your back pocket, and that allows you to be successful.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference between me and the competitors, mate.
Yeah.
Everyone I tell that I've done this thing or whatever, the first question they ask is, aren't there 100 others out there that are doing the same thing? And I think that's the difference between what we can provide at Soul and what they can do. Yeah. They start with a big, B2B, massive software package, and then they roll down the features to go, okay, that's kind of what a sole trader would need. We did the complete opposite. We said, customer front and center, what can we do to help you? I, interviewed probably 30 or 40 people in the end in different industries, and to understand exactly what they need, what is important to them. And we've actually got a pipeline of work coming up that I want to do to help them further. We want to build in a tax calculator, a GST calculator, to make that easy, because that's one of the other things that sole traders really struggle with. Come up to tax time, they don't know if they're going to have to pay anything. No one's told them anything. They normally take the shoebox, give it to the accountant and say, what's the damage? And that's not what you want. You want to have transparency and forward planning and be able to set them up for success. I mean, like your example about your dad, you can't ask me to weld anything.
Yeah.
But how can you expect him to know how to do accounting? It's a very odd model, but it's important to be able to help them to do that, I guess.
And I think you just hit the nail on the head there. You got people who, especially trades people who, accounting and paperwork and invoicing is not necessarily their bread and butter, or it's not their skill set, but that's how they survive as a business. So you can have the best craftsmen ever, but if they can't get their invoices out and get them paid, then they're going to go out of business tomorrow.
Exactly.
In my opinion, you're putting the control back into the business owner, right? What a great feeling that is, to be able to have control of your own business and your own destiny, right? When you're starting a business, you've got a trade. So I get back to my dad. He had a trade which is a welding trade, or and he tried to pass it on to us, but that never happened, right? Now he's selling internet. That didn't work out. But he has his trade, but everything else, like, he's great at his trade, but everything else, the other 70% that's actually going to help his business to be successful, he has no clue about. So he jumps in the deep end, always feels like he's catching his tail, all those different things. And what you've done here, you've offered a simple solution to take control back of the things that people don't understand within their business, which allows them to focus on their trade, right? Which is fantastic. And
well, that's what they love to do, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This other stuff is almost just chores, but it shouldn't be, because it's important for you to be successful. I actually had a friend who's the same thing. He's so into fitness, and he's a PT. And I said to him, like, how do you invoice and whatever? And he's like, I draw it up in Excel and then I send it to them, and they just direct debit me. And I said, do you check that they actually pay you? And he said, what do you mean? And I said, do you actually check that the money comes into your account when they've paid you? And there was one client that has paid him once out of the last 10 times. And, like something like that, I said to him, that is literally $400 that you've worked for, planned for, that you're just never going to get back. So that's sad, because he's passionate about the PT side of things, but no one has told him or showed him or helped him to actually do that before.
The last thing he wants to do at the end of a 8 or 10 or 12 hour day is sit down and do paperwork, right?
Exactly, and that's why I've done it on the mobile phone, mate. So there's no desktop application, because you've always got your phone with you. It's easy to do. He'd be able to invoice that person in less than 10 seconds and make sure that he gets paid.
Yeah, perfect. So for one of the reasons I think that we've been successful at Mate, other than our core values, is that we know we're not experts at everything, and we know when to give one person control of something because that's their baby, and we also know when to bring in the right people. Along your journey, just being the one man band, when have you gone I can't do this, or this is not my area, I need help? Like, have you gone through that process?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess this is actually quite funny, because it's very similar to my clients. I'm also a small business, really, that's trying to figure it out. So I guess, with the development of the app, the marketing of the application and all that kind of stuff, that is definitely not my strength. I work there as doing all the testing and being involved and making sure that the business doesn't lose its core. But where I need to plug the gap, I definitely do that. And I don't think that there is anything wrong with doing that. You should take on what you feel comfortable in doing and work and play to your strengths. But, if there are weaknesses and if you don't know what you're doing exactly, it's definitely worth outsourcing that to make sure you get the right outcome.
I think it's always good you always need to understand something, but you don't need to know how to do something. Does that make sense? In these businesses,
that's a great way to explain.
Yeah, and like me, I mean, my background's, I'm sales and marketing, right? I don't know how to bloody turn an internet service on. That's not my job, right? That's why we've got people here. I understand what it needs, but I don't understand how to do it, and that's why there's a bunch of people in this office, in this building, that know how to do that, right? But put all those parts together, then you've got a successful business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why my wireframe's in the bin, mate. Absolutely.
Hey, you've got to start somewhere, mate. Trust me, I've drawn a bunch of different things in the past, but I mean, from my point of view, I love to ask this from yourself, and this is from a personal point of view, because we when we started this business, it was my twin brother David with a PC on a filing cabinet. That was his desk, and my auntie, we're Italian, right? Background's Italian, and my auntie bringing out lunch from her kitchen to the backyard to where he was working, right? And then I was doing my part on the weekends while I was in Singapore working at Microsoft and trying to balance my life there. And like, I mean, when you're working full time, which you mentioned you are, and you're building a business and then starting a business and trying to acquire customers as a business and all of that, how does your life plan out? Like, how do you do things? How do you plan your life? How do you balance it all? Like, is there any tips and tricks that you've worked out, or have you just chucked it all together, or you're just really well planned? Is that what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, currently I'm still trying to work out exactly what work-life balance means to me.
Yeah.
But it has been very busy, especially with COVID over the last, 14 months.
Yeah.
It's been crazy, mate. Long work hours as well, setting all that up and making sure we do the right thing. So it's been really tough. But I think the tips and tricks, like you've mentioned there, is time management and prioritization. I think that's crucial for success. I mean, you're never going to be able to do everything. So you need to do the things that is the most crucial and the most important in order to get to that outcome. And that goes for work as well as your business. I also think that you need to have a pretty good network.
Yeah.
The stronger your network and support network, so both professionally as well as personally, I think is quite critical for you to be able to make it work. And I actually just, funnily enough, started speaking to someone last night. One of my friends is doing the same thing, and she's about to go into launching her own marketing business on the side, to work full time and then do the marketing on the side. And I said to her, absolutely do it. If you're young, you don't have family at the moment, take the opportunity and do what you're passionate about. Okay. And I think that is a really important thing that anyone should be able to do. And here in Australia, we have such a vast range of opportunities that you should just definitely do it. If you've got a purpose that you want to fulfill, absolutely run hard and enjoy it. I guess my forward motto in life is that you got to work hard, but you got to play harder. If you're not having fun, then you really shouldn't be doing it, because what's the purpose?
Yeah.
You got to enjoy what you're doing, and I think that makes it a lot easier as well. But yeah, so I reckon if you've got a passion for it, it's gonna work. So put your head down and get it done.
Another point, right? You're starting a business with a passion versus starting a business to make money. I know people get into business to make money and a financial opportunity, and yeah, sure, hopefully that's the end goal. But you're just not successful, right? In my opinion, right? You just don't become successful because you're focusing on the wrong outcome, all right? And that outcome of making money, you're going to make sure you cut corners and you achieve something that's half-assed, to be honest, and the consumers aren't going to love it and you're going to fail. Whereas if you're focusing on the quality, the output, solving a problem, then consumers are going to want your product and the rest will come with it, in my opinion. Yeah. It's great.
Totally agree, mate.
So you're saying just do it, right? So if you've got an idea, you've got to be passionate about it, just do it. But do you have any tips for people who are going to do it other than be passionate? Or maybe a flip side of that is, if you had your time over again, what would you do differently?
Sure. Well, if you're looking for an accounting application, Soul App is pretty good. I'd probably recommend that one. It's a good starting point. But mate, what I would probably do is I think your point before around understanding is very important. I think that there were a couple of times where I didn't truly understand what an activity entailed. And what I think I would have done differently, if I had to do it over, would be to actually reach out to that network I was talking around. The reason I say that's so important is because it could save you a lot of time and money, and actually probably give you a better outcome as well. As an example to that, actually, when we started doing our application build, I had a different outlook in mind of exactly what the application would look like. It was actually going to be a communication platform as well. And going down that path, I was pushing quite hard for that for 4 months. But if someone just told me, and this is actually why I did more interviews with different industries to understand what the actual need was, that no one actually needed that. And the current ways for sole traders get work is working, then I wouldn't have gone down that path, wasted that money all the time. I would have just designed Soul the way it is now. So I had to pivot in doing that, and to make sure I get the right outcome. So I think that is quite critical. You need to be quite flexible. The world can change overnight. But if you have that network around you and people you can ask, then you're probably going to make it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool, mate. All right. So access to the product, where to go, how to do it, what it costs, what people need to achieve, and give us that. Give us the lowdown. So where do people start and where do they go after that?
Sure. So essentially, we've got it loaded up to iOS and Android, to the Google Play Store. So if you've got a phone, you can download the app. It's not big or anything. It's quite simple and straightforward to use. And as is our packaging. So you've got one package, which is $15 a month, or you could pay $150 for a 12-month subscription. And there's a 1 month free trial to start you off with as well, to make sure that it works for your business and that there's no obligation. Because if it's not going to work, or if you need something other, then we don't want you to pay for it up front. So I just want to point out, though, that $15 a month is literally less than what you would pay for a 6-pack of beer.
Yeah.
So it is totally worth it to get your business back on track, or starting off, or whatever it might be.
Awesome. And where should they go? So just download the app and then you register via the app as well to get an account?
Yeah, sure. So you can just search for Soul app in either of the stores.
Yeah.
It should come up. You can just go to soulapp.com.au. The links are right there as well, and you can see an overview of all the features, and there's a funky video in there to show you how it can help your business as well, if you'd like to have a look at that. But yeah, the subscription is basically run through Apple and Google these days. So you could just go into the application. It's an easy link in. We haven't even talked about it, but you can actually you should be able to link your business bank account in there. And you'd be able to manage your finances through there. So if it's pretty cool, if you've got, one account for your personal and your business, which we don't recommend, but if you do have that set up, you can actually manage that within the app as well.
Awesome.
So there's a couple of cool things that you definitely need to check out in there.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, okay, we're going down this path where we're going to get rid of the shoebox, so to speak, and we're going digital. Comes to tax time, we've got our accountant who normally deals with the shoebox. Do they then have access to the app? Are we replacing the accountant? Like, how's that sort of thing work?
Yeah, so I wouldn't recommend replacing the accountant, because there's still some stuff you need an expert to do. But what we're trying to help with is actually reduce the cost of getting that accountant on board, because you won't have to go through the shoebox anymore to look for the deductions, look through the receipts, so you're going to spend less time. So essentially what he'll get is there's an export button in the app. You type an email, it'll flick it across to him, all the accounts set up, and everything is stored for the 7 years that you need it to be, with your receipts and your photos and that kind of stuff. So you don't actually need that shoebox at all anymore. But yeah, and like I said, is when you get to tax time in the new version, where we can actually tell you roughly what your tax return should look like with VAT and all that kind of stuff, that's where it's going to get really interesting. So this is just the start for us. That next step and phase is really where we can provide the benefits, I think.
And the app's going to pay for itself many times over in savings, and also money that you're getting invoiced for properly.
Yeah, and it just gives you confidence in your business as well. Yeah. How many times do you go, I don't know? Actually, my mate that I was telling you about when we started in the garage, I asked him, and he said to me he didn't even know if he had enough money to pay for his next Bunnings bill, because he didn't actually know how much money he had spent at Bunnings for them to still invoice him, and he didn't know what he was in his account. He physically couldn't tell me whether he was going to be able to do that, and that's a scary thought for a businessman. So I guess it gives you confidence in your business, it gives you transparency, and then it gives you the ability to be able to do what you love and help people in your own way.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That's cool. Starting with a purpose and solving a problem, putting the control back into the business hand or the business owner's hands, and a person with the right attitude to make a difference, mate. How can you go wrong?
Yeah, exactly. I've just got one more question. Obviously sales and marketing is our world, but how are you getting out there? How are you telling people about the Soul app?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've just kicked off an Instagram and Facebook coverage thing a little bit. Some people are taking it up and posting about it, which is kind of cool. We've got LinkedIn as well, so just the normal stuff. But I'm really on the ground. That's where I find the best thing is. So I'm doing a masterclass with Gig Super on Friday, which is going to be pretty cool. So they do super for sole traders, and we've just partnered up with them. It's still taboo at this point because we haven't actually released it yet, but that's going to be really cool. And I guess the reason I actually partner with them is they're giving me the opportunity to lead some masterclasses and talk to people about accounting and why it's important and how it'll work. So there's a few avenues we're chasing down, mate, but on the ground, getting in the trenches, working with people. I actually called someone sent me a support email the other day, and I said to them, if you've got all these questions, why don't I just rather give you a call and I'll walk you through as opposed to sending you all these emails? And he was like, well, aren't you offshore and all this stuff? And I said, no, mate, I'm sitting here in Brisbane. If you're in Brisbane, let's go for a coffee. So it's cool to be able to help small business by being a small business. And, the Australian market is sole traders, where overseas you don't actually have that way of doing business. So it's going to be an Australian business, and I don't think it'll ever go international, and I'm quite happy with that, to be honest.
Beautiful, mate. And we're exactly the same way, 100%. Let's make Aussies great. Let's make Aussie businesses awesome, which we are. And you made a very valid point there as well. I mean, telling people that our service is based on shore is a big deal, especially during COVID when people couldn't get in touch with our competitors, right? Literally couldn't get in touch with them because their call centers were based overseas. And the problem, just not that it's off subject, but the problem is not overseas call center. The problem is that people that outsource the support overseas don't train their staff enough in the different countries, and that's the biggest issue. But yeah, that's a whole nother topic.
Okay, so
I agree, mate. That's why I wanted to do the design here in Brisbane or in Australia, to be able to make sure that they have to have the customers' issues and problems in mind when we're trying to solve them. But you don't want to go overseas where they don't understand the businesses, they don't understand the market, they don't understand how it works or operates. You're not going to get an optimum solution out of that. And I know we're not 100% there yet, but I think we're getting close. And I'm hoping to work with the customers that we get on. And if there's other things that they need, then I'm hoping that they'd have the chance or the confidence in me to be able to tell me that, so I can help them get that. And I think that's the difference. And it's the same as what you just said there. There's a reason that you should keep things in Australia, because we can do it better. Yeah,
100%. Love it.
Awesome. Okay, well, for our listeners out there, if you're interested in looking at the Soul app, go to the app stores, iOS and Android. What about your website, Johann?
So it's www.soulapp.com.au.
Okay, it can't be easier than that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, it's not easy. And I think the Instagram handle is soul.app.
Soul.app.
Have a look there as well.
Awesome.
All right, mate. We really appreciate your time, and it's great to learn about another great Aussie business. And hopefully things are going strength to strength for you. And I'll be telling my brother, he's a tradie, so I know he struggles with all that extra paperwork. That's definitely not his skill set. But is there anything else you'd like to let our listeners know before we go?
No, I think we've covered all the important points, and just thank you for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity, and hopefully we can have a chat soon.
Yeah, mate, it's been our pleasure. Thanks, Johann. I appreciate it.
No worries. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Let's Be Mates podcast by the team at Mate.
Search for the Let's Be Mates podcast on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and at letsbemates.com.au. Hit subscribe to get the latest episode each week.
For all your telco needs, choose a provider you can trust like a mate. Visit letsbemates.com.au, Google Mate, or call us on 13 14 13 to sign up today.
See you soon, mate.